Imagine discovering your husband's affair not through texts or private investigators, but on a 40-foot conference screen in front of 15,000 people during his ethical CEO of the Year acceptance speech. That's exactly what happened to Madison Whitfield on July 15, 2025. Her husband Ryan was preaching about radical transparency when his mistress accidentally airdropped intimate photos to his phone, which was screen mirroring to the entire conference. The audience gasped, the live stream chat exploded, and Madison's perfect life shattered in 30 seconds of high-definition humiliation. But here's where this story takes a turn that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. The next morning, when Madison's mother-in-law, Patricia Chambers, showed up at her door, she wasn't there to apologize. She wasn't there to comfort. She was there to laugh, to gloat, to tell Madison that this was what happened when trust fund babies couldn't satisfy real men who built real empires. Patricia Chambers spent the next hour explaining why her son's affair was actually Madison's fault. She called the Whitfield family parasites living off dead men's money. She said Madison would lose everything in the divorce. She even said the mistress, a woman named Sophia, came from a better class of people. But Patricia Chambers had no idea she was laughing at the daughter of a man who'd spent 30 years hunting criminals exactly like her. Have you ever watched someone celebrate your pain, not knowing karma was already loading? Drop a comment if you believe what goes around always comes around, because Patricia's karma didn't just come around. It came with handcuffs, federal agents, and a 15-year prison sentence. To understand how spectacular this revenge was, you need to understand who Madison Whitfield really was. She wasn't just rich, she was dynasty rich. Her father, Robert Whitfield, controlled 40% of luxury yacht manufacturing on the eastern seaboard. His company, Whitfield Maritime Holdings, had expanded into aerospace components and defense contracts worth billions, not millions. Billions with a B. But Madison wasn't some spoiled heiress floating through life on daddy's credit card. She graduated Harvard MBA with distinction. She worked 80-hour weeks. She understood that the Whitfield name came with expectations. Marry well, protect the legacy, never create scandal. Enter Ryan Chambers. When Madison met Ryan at a charity gala in 2019, he seemed perfect, tall, ambitious, building his own tech startup called Nexus Analytics. He didn't need the Whitfield money, or so it seemed. He had his own fortune brewing, his own empire building. His company was revolutionary, using predictive analytics to help Fortune 500 companies optimize their operations. But then there was Patricia Chambers, Ryan's mother. From day one, Patricia made it clear she thought Madison was beneath her son. Patricia had built her real estate empire from nothing, flipping houses in Greenwich and Westport until she controlled properties worth hundreds of millions. She loved reminding Madison that she was self-made, while Madison was self-inherited. "You've never built anything," Patricia would say over their monthly lunches at the Ritz-Carlton. "You've never struggled. You've never had to fight for survival. That's why women like you can't keep men like my son satisfied." Madison bit her tongue. She'd been raised to never show weakness, especially to those who would exploit it. But here's a detail that matters. Madison was literally counting. She bit her tongue 47 times in 3 years. She was keeping track, storing every insult, every slight, every cruel comment in her memory. Then, 6 months before the kiss cam incident, Sophia Hartley joined Nexus Analytics as Chief Operations Officer. Sophia was 35, divorced, and had a very specific pattern. She'd worked at 3 tech companies before Nexus. Each time she targeted a married executive. Each time she'd initiated an affair. Each time she'd either sued for sexual harassment when it ended, or manipulated her way into a better position. She wasn't just a homewrecker. She was a professional predator who hunted married men like big game. The signs started small: late-night strategy sessions, weekend trips to review potential acquisitions that Madison wasn't invited to join, Ryan's phone suddenly requiring facial recognition, his laptop password changing weekly, the way he'd close his screen when Madison walked into his home office. But Madison trusted her husband. That was her first mistake. Her second mistake was the fact that she didn't realize Sophia Hartley wasn't even the woman's real name. July 15th, 2025. Started like any other Tuesday. Madison was in her Beacon Hill home office, reviewing quarterly reports for a nonprofit board she served on. Her phone buzzed at 3 p.m. A text from Ryan. "Babe, can't wait for tonight. My acceptance speech is going to blow everyone away. Watch the live stream if you can. This is huge for us. Love you." Tonight was the Boston Tech Excellence Awards. Ryan was receiving the Ethical CEO of the Year award for his revolutionary transparency in corporate governance. The irony would have been delicious if Madison had known what was coming. "I'll be watching," Madison texted back. She'd planned to attend in person. She'd bought a $5,000 Oscar de la Renta gown specifically for the occasion, but a migraine that morning had left her feeling nauseated. Ryan had been understanding, too understanding, she'd realize later. "You rest, babe. I'll have Sophia take notes for you." The event was massive. The Boston Convention Center had 5,000 in-person attendees, but the hybrid format meant another 15,000 were watching virtually from around the world. Madison pulled up the live stream on her laptop at 7 p.m., a cup of tea in hand, proud despite her headache. The production value was impressive. Multiple camera angles, professional lighting, a stage that screamed success. When they called Ryan's name, Madison felt a flutter of pride despite their recent distance. He looked good in his custom Tom Ford suit, the one she'd helped him pick. Ryan took the stage to thunderous applause. Behind him, a massive screen displayed his PowerPoint about building trust through transparency. "Thank you so much for this incredible honor," Ryan began, his phone in hand to control his presentation slides. "When I started Nexus Analytics, I made a commitment to radical honesty. In business, in partnerships, in life, integrity isn't just a word, it's a practice." Madison noticed Sophia in the front row, wearing a red dress that was inappropriate for a business event. She was leaning forward, completely focused on Ryan. "Let me share some principles that guide ethical leadership," Ryan continued, swiping his phone to advance to the next slide. That's when it happened. His phone, connected to the presentation system via AirDrop for the slides, suddenly received an incoming share. Before Ryan could react, the massive screen behind him displayed the notification preview. "Sophia Hartley wants to share 6 photos." Ryan fumbled with his phone, but in his panic he accidentally accepted instead of declining. The first photo filled the 40-foot screen, Sophia in lingerie on what was clearly Madison's bed. Madison recognized her own fret sheets, the Hermes throw pillow she'd bought in Paris. The audience gasped. Ryan frantically tried to swipe away, but each swipe just advanced to the next photo. Each one worse than the last. Sophia in various states of undress. In Madison's home, her shower, and her furniture. The fourth photo was the killer, Ryan and Sophia together, taking a mirror selfie in Madison's walk-in closet, her wearing Madison's Cartier necklace, the one Ryan had given Madison for their anniversary. "Oh my God, turn it off!" someone shouted from the audience. The tech team scrambled, but the system had frozen. For 30 excruciating seconds, 15,000 people watched Ryan Chambers, Ethical CEO of the Year, trying to explain why his mistress's photos were displaying at his Integrity Award ceremony. The final photo was the worst, a screenshot of text messages. "Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. After the IPO, I'll leave her. Madison's so clueless. The Whitfield money will all be ours soon." Finally, mercifully, the screen went black. Ryan stood alone on stage, microphone in hand, his Building Trust Through Transparency award sitting mockingly on the podium. The silence was deafening. Then someone in the virtual audience figured out how to unmute themselves. "Ice that your wife's bedroom?" The dam broke. The in-person audience erupted. Phones came out. The live stream chat exploded. Within seconds, screenshots were on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. Hashtag ethical cheater. Hashtag transparency fail. Hashtag tech bro exposed. Madison sat frozen in her home office, watching her husband's career implode in real time. Her phone began exploding with notifications. Her father, her mother, every contact in Boston's elite circle. But the worst part wasn't the photos. It wasn't even the public humiliation. It was the text message about the Whitfield money. The Whitfield money will all be ours soon. Sophia hadn't accidentally airdropped those photos. She'd done it on purpose, thinking Ryan's phone was locked, that they'd appear as notifications only he could see, a sexy surprise during his big moment. She hadn't realized his phone was screen mirroring to 15,000 people. Madison watched as Ryan fled the stage. The event moderator tried to restore order. "We're experiencing technical difficulties. Please bear with us." "Technical difficulties?" someone shouted. "We just saw his whole affair." Madison's phone rang. "Jessica." "Madison, are you watching this?" "Everyone's watching this," Madison said numbly. The live stream had cut to a technical difficulties screen, but it was too late. The damage was done. Tech Twitter was having a meltdown. LinkedIn was on fire. The photos were everywhere. The text messages were being analyzed word by word. Ryan's Tesla wasn't in the driveway when he finally came home at 2 a.m. Right now, pause and imagine. Your worst nightmare broadcast to millions. What would you do? Let me know below, but Madison's response will shock you. Madison sat in her living room with a glass of her father's 30-year-old Macallan, waiting. Jessica wanted to stay, but Madison sent her home. This was something she needed to face alone. At 2:07 a.m., she heard Ryan's key in the lock. He walked in and saw her sitting there, still in her concert dress, the untouched scotch in her hand. His face was white, his shirt was untucked. He smelled like Sophia's perfume, something expensive and trying too hard. "Madison, sit down." Ryan sat. For the first time in their marriage, he actually looked scared. "The investor meeting," Madison said quietly. "How did it go?" "Madison, please, because from where I was sitting, section 105, row J, seats 14 and 15, you remember, the anniversary tickets I bought us. It looked like you were pretty busy with something else." The confession that followed was pathetic in its predictability. Madison had become distant. The pressure of working together was suffocating. Sophia understood him in ways Madison never could. She challenged him. She excited him. She made him feel alive. "How long?" Madison asked. 4 months. 4 months. While Madison was defending him to her father. While she was bringing Whitfield connections to Nexus Analytics. While she was buying designer gowns to support him at award ceremonies she'd end up watching from her sick bed. "Show me your phone," Madison said. "What?" "Your real phone. Not the one in your pocket. The burner phone. I know you have one, Ryan. You're not that smart." He retrieved it from his home office, hidden inside a hollowed-out book. The Art of War, because of course it was. Madison scrolled through the messages. Love poems with subject lines like "Midnight Thoughts of You" and "When We Rule the World Together." Plans for a future that didn't include her. Details about company funds being moved to accounts she didn't recognize. "We're done," Madison said simply. "Madison, we can work through this. Get out. This is my house too. GET. Out." Ryan left, but the real confrontation was still coming. At exactly 7 a.m., Madison's doorbell rang. She'd had 2 hours of sleep and looked like hell. Patricia Chambers stood on her doorstep in a $5,000 St. John's suit, her face a mask of false sympathy that barely concealed raw satisfaction. "Madison, dear, I heard about the unfortunate incident." She pushed past Madison without invitation, settling into the living room like she owned it. "Though I can't say I'm entirely surprised," Patricia continued, examining her manicured nails. "Men like Ryan need intellectual stimulation. They need partners, not accessories. When wives become too comfortable with inherited wealth, too dependent on family money, well..." She shrugged. "These things happen. At least the whole world knows now that Ryan's moved on to someone more suitable." That conference showed everyone what Ryan really wants. Madison's hands were shaking. With rage or exhaustion, she wasn't sure. You never appreciated him, Patricia continued, warming to her theme. You played at being a businesswoman with Daddy's money while Ryan built something real. Sophia understands that. She's worked for everything she has, just like Ryan, just like me. Then came the words that would ultimately destroy Patricia Chambers. You Whitfields think your old money makes you better than everyone else, but you're nothing but parasites, living off the accomplishments of dead men. Sophia comes from a good family. Her father is an international businessman, very successful. Together, she and Ryan will build something your family could never understand. New money, earned money, real money. Madison set down her coffee cup very carefully. Get out of my house. Patricia laughed. Your house? Ryan paid for half of it with money he earned, and when this divorce goes through, he'll take half of everything. Maybe more, considering Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state, and infidelity doesn't matter anymore. She stood, smoothing her skirt. You should thank Sophia, really. She's setting Ryan free from a marriage that was drowning him. And you'll go crying to Daddy like you always do. But this time, Madison, Daddy can't fix it. This time you lose. Patricia walked out, leaving Madison alone in her kitchen, shaking with rage. But Patricia made one fatal mistake. She assumed Robert Whitfield was just another billionaire. She had no idea what she'd just awakened. Robert Whitfield had built his empire on 3 principles: observe, analyze, destroy. For 48 hours after the tech conference disaster, he said nothing. He didn't call Madison. He didn't rage about the embarrassment. He didn't threaten Ryan. He observed. And while the media focused on the scandal, replaying the airdrop fail and analyzing every photo, while Patricia gloated about her son's upgraded relationship, Robert Whitfield assembled a team. The private investigator he hired wasn't some guy with a camera. This was Marcus Chen, a former FBI agent who'd spent 15 years tracking financial crimes. The forensic accountant wasn't from H&R Block. She was Diana Walsh, who'd unraveled Ponzi schemes worth billions, and the digital specialist, a former NSA analyst who Robert simply called Smith. I want everything, Robert told them. Every text, every email, every financial transaction, every breath they've taken in the last 5 years. No stone unturned. What they found in the first week was disturbing. Sophia Hartley's pattern was even worse than Madison suspected. 3 companies, 3 affairs, 3 massive settlements sealed with NDAs. But the settlements weren't for sexual harassment. They were hush money to prevent her from revealing corporate secrets she'd stolen. But then Smith found something interesting. Sophia Hartley hadn't existed before 2020. She'd legally changed her name from Sophia Hendricks. Why would she change her name? Robert asked. That's where it gets interesting, Marcus said, sliding a folder across Robert's desk. Her father is Vincent Hendricks, street name, the banker. Robert knew that name. Everyone in certain circles knew that name. Vincent the banker Hendricks was wanted in 12 countries for money laundering, wire fraud, and racketeering. He ran one of the most sophisticated financial crime networks in the world, washing money for cartels, arms dealers, and worse. Keep digging, Robert said. The second week brought revelation after revelation. Ryan hadn't just been having an affair, he'd been stealing. Using his position at Nexus Analytics, he'd been copying proprietary data from clients and selling it to competitors. The investor meetings were actually coordination sessions with buyers of stolen corporate secrets. Sophia wasn't just his mistress, she was his partner in crime. Together, they'd accumulated over $50 million in offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Cyprus, and Switzerland. But the biggest revelation came in week 3, when Diana Walsh was reviewing Ryan's financial records. Mr. Whitfield, she said, calling him at 11 p.m. You need to see this. The records showed wire transfers from Nexus Analytics to a company called Chambers Development LLC. Normal enough, Patricia Chambers was in real estate. But when Diana traced the money further, it went from Chambers Development to a series of shell companies, then to accounts controlled by Vincent Hendricks. Patricia Chambers had been laundering money for Sophia's father for 15 years, Every property she owned, every successful flip, every real estate triumph she'd bragged about, it was all built on criminal money. She wasn't a self-made success story. She was a criminal who'd been washing money through Connecticut real estate. "My God," Robert said, looking at the evidence. "She called us parasites while she was literally feeding off criminal enterprises." "It gets worse," Marcus said. 3 weeks ago, Vincent Hendricks was arrested in Miami. He's already signed a cooperation agreement. He's giving up everyone, including his daughter and Patricia Chambers. Robert leaned back in his chair. For the first time since the kiss cam incident, he smiled. "Sophia Hartley wasn't even her real name," he said quietly. "She's the daughter of one of the most wanted criminals in America, and Patricia Chambers is his business partner. They thought they were destroying my daughter. Instead, they've destroyed themselves." Madison arranged the meeting for 2 p.m. at the Four Seasons Boston. She chose the restaurant deliberately. Public, elegant, lots of witnesses. Patricia arrived in another designer suit, this time Chanel, her confidence radiating like expensive perfume. "Madison," she said, air-kissing nothing, "have you come to discuss the divorce settlement? I hope you found a good lawyer. You'll need one. Though after that conference disaster, I imagine every lawyer in Boston knows Ryan's preferences." "Actually," Madison said, "I've brought someone who wants to meet you." FBI Special Agent Diana Foster stood up from the adjacent table. She was everything Patricia pretended to be, truly self-made, genuinely powerful, and absolutely ruthless. "Mrs. Chambers," Agent Foster said, displaying her badge. "We need to discuss your relationship with Vincent Hendricks." The color drained from Patricia's face so fast Madison thought she might faint. "I don't know anyone by that name." Agent Foster placed a folder on the table. "Would you like to reconsider that statement?" Patricia's hands shook as she opened the folder. The first photo showed her meeting with Vincent at a Miami restaurant in 2018. The second showed them at a property closing in Greenwich. The third showed them reviewing what were clearly financial documents in her home office. "These photos don't prove anything," Patricia said, but her voice cracked. "Turn the page," Agent Foster said. "Wire transfer records, 15 years worth. Money flowing from Vincent's criminal network through Patricia's real estate companies. Every property she'd ever bragged about. Every success she'd thrown in Madison's face. It was all there in black and white. Criminal money disguised as real estate profits." "Still think we're parasites?" Madison asked quietly. Patricia's hands were trembling so badly she could barely turn the pages. Then she reached the transcript section. Recorded phone calls between her and Vincent, discussing how to structure deals to avoid federal detection. Conversations about which properties to buy to maximize money laundering efficiency. "These recordings," Patricia whispered, "were made by Vincent Hendricks himself," Agent Foster said. "He's been recording everything for years. Insurance policy, he called it." The final document in the folder was Vincent's cooperation agreement, signed 3 weeks ago. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he'd agreed to testify against everyone in his network. His daughter Sophia was listed. Ryan Chambers was listed. Patricia Chambers was at the top of the list. "He sold you out," Madison said. "All of you. Your son, his girlfriend, you. Vincent gave you all up to save himself." Patricia looked up, tears streaming down her face, mascara running in black rivers. "You did this. You and your father—" "No," Madison interrupted. "You did this. You built your entire life on crime while calling my family parasites. You laughed at old money, not realizing that old money survives because it's clean. It's legitimate. It's built on actual business, not washing blood money through real estate." Agent Foster stood. "We'll be in touch very soon, Mrs. Chambers." Patricia's face went from white to red. "This is harassment. I'll sue you. I'll sue the FBI. "You'll do nothing," Madison said quietly, "because right now you're wondering if we have enough evidence. You're wondering if Vincent really gave you up. You're wondering if your accounts are already frozen. And you're wondering if you should run." Patricia stood abruptly, knocking over her water glass. I have a major investor presentation tomorrow night. 40% of Connecticut's most powerful developers. A $500 million project. I don't have time for your pathetic intimidation tactics. By all means, Agent Foster said with a slight smile. Don't let us keep you from your presentation. Patricia grabbed her purse and stormed out, her heels clicking aggressively on the marble floor. Madison watched her go, knowing that Patricia had no idea the FBI already had warrants signed and teams in position. The woman was walking directly into the trap. She still thinks she's untouchable, Madison said. They always do, Agent Foster replied. Right until the handcuffs click. The last thing Madison saw was Patricia storming through the Four Seasons lobby, still arrogant, still convinced she was untouchable. The woman who'd spent years mocking trust fund babies had no idea she'd just signed her own arrest warrant by confirming she'd be at tomorrow night's dinner. Patricia laughed at old money, but she was about to learn why empires that last centuries don't fall to criminals who last decades. If you're ready for justice, hit that like button now. Robert Whitfield had orchestrated corporate takeovers worth billions, but nothing gave him more satisfaction than orchestrating the simultaneous destruction of everyone who'd hurt his daughter. The arrests were timed for maximum impact, all scheduled for the day after the Four Seasons confrontation. Patricia had walked right into the trap, confirming she'd be at her mansion for the investor dinner, exactly where the FBI wanted her. Ryan Chambers was taken into custody at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, right in the middle of Nexus Analytics' morning meeting. FBI agents walked into the conference room where Ryan was presenting quarterly projections to his team. They let him finish his PowerPoint slide about ethical business practices before announcing he was under arrest for wire fraud, corporate espionage, and money laundering. This is a mistake, Ryan kept saying as they cuffed him. I want my lawyer. His employees filmed everything. Within minutes, Tart CEO Perp Walk was trending. Sophia's arrest was supposed to come at 11 a.m. at Logan Airport. The FBI had tracked her first-class ticket to Zurich. She was probably thinking she could access those Swiss accounts in person. But when agents arrived at Terminal E, she was gone. Security footage showed her abandoning her Louis Vuitton luggage at check-in, somehow sensing the trap. She'd slipped out through an employee exit. Her father's criminal connections had taught her well. A Boston teenager caught her sprint to a waiting car on Instagram, posting some rich lady just ditched like 20 designer bags and ran out of Logan. TSA is going crazy. Within hours, she'd vanished. Her father's network, though crumbling, still had enough reach to get her fake papers and a route to Eastern Europe. She'd abandoned Ryan to face justice alone, proving their love was as transactional as everything else. Patricia's arrest was saved for last, 7 p.m., during her monthly real estate investors' dinner at her Greenwich mansion. She'd actually convinced herself that the Four Seasons meeting was just intimidation, that Madison and her father were bluffing. After all, she'd been washing money for 15 years without getting caught. Why would today be different? She'd invited 40% of Connecticut's wealthiest developers to pitch a new project, a $500 million waterfront complex that would revolutionize luxury living. Patricia stood at the head of her dining room, champagne in hand, actually laughing about trust fund babies trying to scare her when the FBI walked in. She was midway through her presentation, talking about building generational wealth through smart investments, when the FBI walked in. This can't be happening, Patricia whispered, the champagne glass slipping from her hand and shattering on the Italian marble. You said you'd be in touch. This was just supposed to be, Ma'am, Patricia Chambers, you're under arrest for money laundering, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit racketeering, the lead agent announced, loud enough for all 40 investors to hear clearly. The raid was spectacular. Agents didn't just arrest Patricia, they seized everything. Computers, files, artwork, cars, even the mansion itself. Her investors watched in horror as their host was led away in handcuffs, no longer laughing about trust fund babies, now screaming about her rights, demanding to speak to senators and governors she claimed to know. One investor was heard saying, "I guess that's what she meant by revolutionizing." The media explosion was immediate and overwhelming. Every major news outlet led with the story. Ethics award to handcuffs. Tech CEO's airdrop disaster exposes massive money laundering ring. The conference video that had started everything was played repeatedly, now with arrows pointing to Federal Defendant 1% and Federal Defendant 2. But Robert Whitfield's masterstroke was the asset recovery. Using civil forfeiture laws, his legal team moved to seize every penny Ryan and Sophia had stolen. The offshore accounts, the hidden real estate, the luxury cars, the art collection, everything. But instead of keeping it, Robert did something unexpected. He returned every dollar to Ryan's defrauded clients. "The Whitfield family has thrived for 3 centuries because we understand that reputation is worth more than money," Robert said in his only public statement. "These criminals stole from good companies. We're simply returning what was taken." The gesture transformed public perception overnight. The Whitfields went from billionaire victims to billionaire heroes. Madison received personal thank you calls from Fortune 500 CEOs. 3 companies offered her board positions on the spot. Meanwhile, the investigation revealed the true scope of the conspiracy. Ryan and Sophia had sold corporate secrets to Chinese competitors, Russian oligarchs, and Indian tech giants. They'd compromised national security by selling defense contractor data. What started as simple corporate espionage had become international spy games. Ryan's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, offering to testify against Sophia and Patricia. But the FBI didn't need his cooperation. They had Vincent Hendricks, and he documented everything with the paranoid thoroughness of a career criminal who trusted no one. The trial dates were set. The assets were frozen. The empire Patricia had spent 15 years building was dismantled in 15 days. And Madison? She hadn't said a public word since the kiss cam incident. She let the arrests speak for themselves. She let justice do the talking. But the best revelation was yet to come. The divorce proceedings lasted exactly 1 day. Ryan's attorney, a Harvard Law graduate who'd probably expected a lengthy battle over assets, sat silent as Madison's lawyer presented the case. With Ryan facing federal charges and all his assets either frozen or seized as proceeds of crime, there was nothing to fight over. "My client agrees to all terms," Ryan's attorney said, not meeting anyone's eyes. Madison got everything: the house, the legitimate investments, even Ryan's collection of luxury watches that he'd bought to impress clients. The prenuptial agreement Patricia had mocked, "Only insecure women need prenups," turned out to be irrelevant. Under Massachusetts law, Madison could claim all assets, since Ryan's wealth was derived from criminal activity. The Ethical CEO of the Year award was even entered into evidence as proof of fraud. He'd literally been committing crimes while accepting an ethics award. The sentencing hearings were public, and Madison attended every one. Ryan Chambers, once the golden boy of Boston Tech, stood before a federal judge in an orange jumpsuit. The same man who'd stood on stage preaching about ethical leadership while his mistress's photos displayed behind him. His cooperation agreement had fallen apart when investigators discovered he'd hidden additional offshore accounts even after his arrest. He'd lied to the FBI, thinking he was smarter than federal investigators who'd been doing this for decades. The prosecutor made a point of noting that Sophia had fled the country, abandoning Ryan to face charges alone. "She left you the moment things got difficult," the prosecutor said. "So much for ruling the world together." 12 years, the judge announced. Federal prison. No possibility of early release. Ryan turned to look at Madison as they led him away. She didn't acknowledge him. He'd become exactly what his mother had always accused the Whitfields of being: a parasite, feeding off others' work. The man who'd preached about radical transparency at the conference had been living a lie so complete that even his mistress didn't know the full extent of his crimes. Patricia's sentencing was even more dramatic. She'd hired the best defense attorney money could buy, except she had no money. Everything had been seized. She stood before the judge in a borrowed suit, her hair gray at the roots because she couldn't afford her colorist from jail. 15 years. The woman who'd laughed about trust fund babies would be eating prison food until she was 73. But it was Sophia's fate that proved most poetic. She'd fled to Eastern Europe using fake papers her father had arranged, escaping arrest but not justice. The woman whose airdrop mistake had exposed everything, who'd tried to send sexy photos during her lover's ethics award, was now hiding from the very technology she'd misused. Without access to the frozen accounts, without Ryan to protect her, without her father's network which was being dismantled by international law enforcement, she became what she'd always been, a predator without prey. Last anyone heard, she was working as a bar hostess in Belgrade, her designer clothes sold, her Instagram deleted, her carefully constructed life revealed as the illusion it always was. She'd escaped prison but imprisoned herself in a life of constant fear, always looking over her shoulder, always wondering when the FBI might track her down. Sometimes, running from justice is worse than facing it, but the biggest revelation came during a quiet dinner between Madison and her father at their family estate in Marblehead. "There's something you should know," Robert said, pouring them both wine. "Something about our family that I've kept from you." Madison listened as her father revealed the truth. For 30 years, Robert Whitfield hadn't just been building a shipping empire, he'd been working with federal law enforcement, using his legitimate businesses as cover to gather intelligence on international financial crimes. Vincent Hendricks wasn't randomly caught, Robert explained. We'd been tracking him for 5 years. When the FBI came to me about suspicious activity at Nexus Analytics, one of our subsidiary vendors, I saw an opportunity. The tech conference disaster just accelerated our timeline. "You knew?" Madison asked. "You knew about Ryan before?" "I suspected, but I needed proof, and I needed them to reveal their entire network. When Patricia came to gloat at you that morning, she had no idea we were recording everything, building our case. Your pain, and I'm sorry for that pain, became the catalyst that brought down one of the largest money laundering operations on the East Coast. That Four Seasons meeting? Patricia thought she was calling our bluff. She was actually confirming her location for the arrest teams." Madison stared at her father. The man Patricia had dismissed as old money had been playing a game so complex that Patricia couldn't even understand the rules. "Our family fortune," Robert continued, "hasn't survived 3 centuries by accident. We've survived because we've always understood that true power isn't about money. It's about justice. It's about building something that lasts. It's about protecting what matters. So all those shipping contracts, the defense work, cover, legitimate business that allowed us to monitor criminal networks trying to infiltrate American commerce. The Whitfield legacy isn't just wealth, Madison. It's justice. We're not parasites. We're antibodies." Madison understood now why her father had remained so calm during the scandal. He hadn't been passive. He'd been hunting. And when Patricia Chambers had laughed at his daughter, she'd essentially painted a target on her own back. "Our legacy isn't just wealth. It's justice," Robert said, raising his glass, and Patricia Chambers just learned that the hard way. 5 years passed. Madison Whitfield stood in her office at Phoenix Partners, the venture capital firm she'd built from the ashes of her marriage. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Boston Harbor, where Whitfield ships had sailed for 300 years. Her company had become the premier funding source for ethical tech startups, with a special focus on women entrepreneurs. She'd never remarried, never even dated. She'd focused on building something real, something lasting, something that would matter long after she was gone. Phoenix Partners had a unique due diligence process. Every potential partner underwent the same level of scrutiny that had exposed Ryan and Sophia's crimes. In 5 years, they'd caught 6 companies trying to commit fraud, 3 money laundering schemes, and 1 attempted corporate espionage operation. "We don't just invest money," Madison would tell potential clients. "We invest in integrity." On her desk sat a single piece of paper, delivered that morning. A letter from FCI Danbury, the federal prison where Patricia Chambers was serving year 10 of her 15-year sentence. "Madison," the letter read, "I laughed at you once. I mocked your family, your legacy, your father. I thought I understood power, success, and what it meant to build something. I was wrong about everything. Your father isn't just a billionaire, he's a guardian of justice. You aren't just an heiress, you're a warrior in your own right. I spent so many years laughing at you that I never saw the truth. The Whitfield name doesn't represent old money. It represents old values, honor, justice, and the patient pursuit of what's right. The prison library has business journals. I've read about Phoenix Partners, about what you've built. You've become everything I pretended to be. I'm sorry for everything. Patricia. Madison read the letter twice, then filed it away without responding. Some conversations were better left closed. Some apologies came too late. Some laughter, once it stopped, could never start again. That evening she had dinner with her father at the family estate. Robert was in his 70s now, but still sharp, still working with federal law enforcement, still hunting criminals who thought they were smarter than the system. Patricia wrote to me, Madison said. And? She finally understands. Robert nodded, looking out at the harbor. It was never about who we were, Madison. It was about who they weren't. They weren't honorable. They weren't legitimate. They weren't built to last. Madison thought about the tech conference disaster that had started everything. It still existed on the internet, forever memorialized in compilation videos of most epic tech fails and cheaters exposed in 4K. But its meaning had transformed. What began as Madison's humiliation had become Patricia's destruction. The woman who'd laughed at parasites living off dead men's accomplishments was now inmate 47,832nd, living off taxpayer dollars in federal prison. The son who was going to build something real was inmate 38,291st, building nothing but regret. The mistress who was going to rule the world with Ryan was hiding in Eastern Europe, ruling nothing but her own fear. And Madison? She stood in her office, running a company that had already helped launch 12 successful startups, all run by women who'd been told they couldn't succeed in tech. She'd turned her pain into power, her humiliation into justice, her divorce into a dynasty of her own making. True power is patient, not loud. It doesn't announce itself with arrogance or cruelty. It waits. It watches. It strikes when the moment is perfect. Legacy beats money every time. The Chamber's fortune, built on crime, had evaporated in months. The Whitfield fortune, built on centuries of legitimate business and quiet justice, would outlast them all. And those who laugh last, they laugh longest. Patricia Chambers had laughed when she thought Madison was weak. She'd laughed when she thought the Whitfield money was old and parasitic. She'd laughed when she thought her son's affair was Madison's failure. She wasn't laughing anymore. She'd learned the hard way. Never mock what you don't understand. Never mistake quiet for weak. Never assume that old money means old methods. And never, ever laugh at the daughter of a man who spent 30 years perfecting the art of legal revenge. Because karma doesn't forget an address. It doesn't lose phone numbers. It doesn't misplace files. And it definitely doesn't miss when someone preaches about ethics while living a lie. And when it comes for you, when it really comes for you, it brings handcuffs, federal agents, and a 15-year reservation at a facility where orange is the only fashion statement allowed. Madison looked out at the harbor one more time, then returned to her work. She had a meeting in an hour with a young woman from Dorchester who developed an app to help domestic violence victims safely document abuse. The woman had been turned down by 12 male-run VC firms. Phoenix Partners would fund her. They'd give her everything she needed to succeed. Because that's what real power did. It lifted others up instead of tearing them down. Patricia learned the hard way. Never mock what you don't understand. Subscribe if you believe in justice. And share this story with someone who needs to hear that karma never forgets an address. Drop a comment below. Was Madison's revenge too much? Or did Patricia get exactly what she deserved? Remember, sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous. Sometimes old money is old for a reason. And sometimes, when someone laughs at your pain, they're really just announcing their own downfall. The airdrop disaster caught Ryan cheating. But it also caught the beginning of the end for everyone who'd underestimated Madison Whitfield. And that, my friends, is what we call poetic justice.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.